Since the early days of Anecdote, we've been searching for ways to collaborate around a sales story bank, to have the very best stories of the company there, to know that salespeople can tell those stories and to actually see them telling those stories. And it's been a journey, and it hasn't been that easy to find a good system. And I think we'll continue to find better and better systems. I want to show you an implementation that we've done using a website builder, in this case a free one from Google called Google Sites. The website is organized with a homepage where you can store your featured stories, the latest story from your business, the most important story from our business, for example, this story here from Accenture. And then company stories, some of your best value stories, your actual company story, success stories, which is the bread and butter story type for salespeople. You need lots of them. And then stories about your staff and the people in your team. So jumping to company-wide stories, here are some of the stories that anyone who's an Anecdote partner would need to be able to tell. Obviously the Anecdote company story, which we'll have a look at in a second, but also stories about your company values, response to COVID here, and typical influence stories to counter maybe typical objections or wrong beliefs that your clients might have. Moving to success stories. So these are the major success examples from our company. And this is one way to arrange that, with the client icon. You click on these to get the specific story. We've also put in here stories we'd like to collect that they haven't got a link for them yet, and even a list of clients that we've had that we know there is a story there somewhere and here's the contact. So our partners could search that list and say, okay, I'm doing business with this client. What's a similar client to that? Okay, Sean, you've got the story. Could you tell me that story? So this is not only a place to store success stories, but a place to know where we could find success stories if we needed them. And then moving on to staff stories, the different stories about your staff, so that you can introduce them with a story and really pump up each person in the sales team. So this isn't just a repository of stories, it's also a place to practice stories. And I'll show you how we do that with the Anecdote company story. So now we're looking at how we would store each story in your story bank, starting with some search tags so that people can search by your product types, by geography, by role type, that kind of thing. Here we have the actual story, Sean Callahan telling the company story. It's only about 1 minute and 10 seconds. We can easily add in imagery and maps and things. Very good to have place maps to show exactly where this story happened. Put in the text of the story so people can read it. Sometimes people prefer to read rather than to watch it or listen to a video. And then most importantly, the team practicing the story. We're using some educational software from Microsoft called Flipgrid. It's free software, really good way to practice stories. The advantage compared to WhatsApp is we can set up within this system instructions and get them recording their stories. We can tell them exactly how long it can be. We can moderate those stories, and then as soon as they're moderated, they will appear automatically in the website for other salespeople to see. So here you see some of our Anecdote partners practicing the Anecdote company story, and any salesperson can come in, click on that and hear it. And what I've realized is salespeople really like to hear their colleagues telling these stories. It's one thing to have the company expert telling the story, but to listen to your colleagues tell a story and what's the spin they put on it, how they tell it, is just super useful for building confidence so that they can tell it. So then they'll record a response, tell the story. The story expert in your company will coach it, they maybe need to practice it, but here it is for everybody to see. So now we have a live story bank where everybody can see each other's stories, they can upload them easily, but more importantly, as a sales leader, I can see these people know how to tell the story. I'm confident that they can tell it in a client interaction, and storytelling becomes a live practice in your company, not just a theory. And that's what we really want. Then we start to see the true benefit, then we start to see better sales results. So that's a way to implement a sales story bank. Anecdote can provide this as a service. And of course, there are other technologies that it can be done on. This is just some that we've worked on.